You answered every message.
Mhm.
You helped whenever they asked. You forgave every mistake.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
stayed.
Right.
So why is it that the people who give the absolute most of themselves are often the ones who are respected the absolute least?
That's a heavy question.
It really is. Today we're doing a deep dive into a collection of insights from a piece called The Architecture of Self-Respect. And the mission here is to figure out why your endless generosity might actually be, well, destroying your relationships.
Yeah, we're going to explore the quiet and honestly, often really uncomfortable truth about why giving too much of yourself inevitably leads to getting respected too little.
Because it's a brutal paradox, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I mean, we are constantly sold this societal narrative that if you just give enough, right, if you are endlessly flexible and universally forgiving, eventually the world will recognize your virtue.
Right, like it's a cosmic reward system.
Exactly. You pour all this energy into others, expecting that one day they will turn around and reward you with reciprocal love and loyalty. But the reality, as outlined in our source material, is that one day you look around and realize nobody respects you.
Wow.
Yeah, the output of endless unconditional sacrifice isn't respect. It is, it's apathy.
Apathy. That hits hard. And that gap, between what you expect and what you actually get, that's the trap. People come to expect your kindness, but they never actually appreciate it.
No, they don't.
To really understand the mechanics of this, I think it helps to look at it through the lens of economic inflation.
Oh, that's an interesting way to frame it.
Think about how a currency works. It has value because there's a finite amount of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's backed by trust.
Right.
But when a central bank just starts printing money, endlessly flooding the market with infinite paper, that currency inherently loses its value.
It undergoes inflation.
Exactly. The money is still there, but it takes, a wheelbarrow full of it to buy a single loaf of bread. Its purchasing power is completely destroyed.
Yeah.
What we're really talking about here is an economy of human presence. When your availability is infinite, when you print too much of your own time and energy and hand it out to absolutely everyone without condition.
Your presence loses its perceived value in the marketplace of your relationships.
Yes, exactly.
And just like fiat currency, when you overprint your availability, the people around you stop seeing your help as a gift.
Right.
They start seeing it as a utility. I mean, think of it like running water.
Okay.
You don't walk into your kitchen, turn on the tap, and feel this profound, sweeping gratitude that water comes out.
You just expect it.
You just expect it. And if it stops flowing for even a second, you aren't grateful for the years it worked flawlessly. You're just instantly annoyed that it stopped.
Wow, yeah, you just meant the pipes.
Right. And there is a deeply ingrained biological mechanism at play here, too. The human brain is literally wired for habituation.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning, to save cognitive energy, our brains filter out constant, unchanging stimuli. If someone is always there, always saying yes, always fixing the problem, the brain stops registering their effort as novel or valuable.
It just becomes the baseline environment.
Exactly, you become the running water.
So, if being infinitely available destroys the value of our presence, why do we do it? I mean, we usually tell ourselves we're just being kind, right? We do. We tell ourselves we are being accommodating, or we are, taking the high road just to keep the peace.
Yeah, that's the story we tell ourselves.
But biologically, psychologically, there is a massive difference between genuine kindness and people-pleasing.
A profound difference. Genuine kindness comes from a place of internal strength and abundance.
Right.
It's given freely without strings attached. And crucially, it can be withheld if the situation doesn't warrant it or, if the recipient is acting abusively.
Right, there's a choice involved.
Exactly. People-pleasing, on the other hand, comes almost entirely from fear. It is not generosity. It is a survival strategy.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because isn't people-pleasing often cleverly disguised to ourselves as just being a quote-unquote nice person?
Absolutely.
So how does the listener actually recognize when they are operating out of fear rather than genuine strength?
Well, in trauma psychology, we talk about the 4 distinct nervous system responses to a threat. You have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
And fawning is the people-pleasing.
Right. Fawning is an appeasement strategy. It is the subconscious belief that if I keep you completely happy, if I anticipate all your needs and never cause friction, you won't hurt me and you won't abandon me.
It's a biological defense mechanism.
Disguised as being nice, yes.
The source material actually names 3 specific shadows lurking behind this behavior: the fear of rejection, the fear of conflict, and the fear of being alone.
Yeah, those are the big three.
Let's break down how the nervous system is actually processing these fears. Let's start with rejection. Why does the brain treat someone simply being displeased with us as, a life or death scenario?
Because for the vast majority of human history, it literally was a life or death scenario. Yeah, from an evolutionary psychology standpoint, humans are pack animals. If you were rejected by your tribe on the savannah 10,000 years ago, you didn't just feel sad.
Right.
You starved, or you were eaten by a predator. Social isolation meant certain physical death.
Wow.
So our brains evolved to view social rejection as a literal threat to our physical survival. When you are acting out of the fear of rejection today, your, quote, kindness is actually a transaction.
You are paying for approval.
Exactly. You are answering every message instantly because your ancient mammalian brain is terrified that if you don't, the tribe will leave you behind to die.
Which bleeds right into the second fear, the fear of conflict. People pleasers will forgive every mistake, not because they have truly processed the pain and chosen grace, but because they are terrified of confrontation.
Yes.
What is actually happening in the body when someone who operates from a fawn response even thinks about holding someone accountable?
They experience what we call an amygdala hijack.
An amygdala hijack.
Right. The amygdala is the brain's internal alarm system. When a chronic people pleaser considers setting a boundary or calling out bad behavior, the amygdala fires up, aggressively dumping cortisol and adrenaline into the bloodstream.
So their body is literally reacting to a physical threat.
Exactly. Their heart races, their palms sweat, their stomach drops. The body is preparing for a physical attack, even if the, quote, conflict is something as mundane as sending a text message saying, I can't help you move this weekend.
Unbelievable.
So they avoid the conflict entirely. They say yes. They forgive the unforgivable, and they do this simply to soothe their own nervous system's panic.
But there's a cost to that.
A massive cost. The tragedy is, by avoiding the temporary, acute discomfort of conflict, they guarantee the long-term chronic suffering of resentment and disrespect.
And then there's the third fear of being alone.
Yeah.
The source material notes that people pleasers will stay in relationships even when the other person doesn't deserve their loyalty. They will tolerate being treated as a backup option rather than a priority, simply because the absolute void of standing by themselves seems infinitely worse than the pain of being in a room where they are invisible.
This ties deeply into attachment theory. Often this dynamic starts in early childhood.
How so?
Well, if a child realizes that their caregivers only give affection or attention when the child is perfectly quiet, perfectly compliant, and perfectly helpful.
The child learns that their worth is tied to their utility.
Exactly. The child's brain hardwires a terrifying equation. My authentic needs equal abandonment. My utility equals survival. For an adult carrying this wound, any connection, even a toxic, one-sided, or exploitative one, feels fundamentally safer to the nervous system than no connection at all.
Because they operate on a deficit model.
Right. They believe their baseline state is unlovable, so they feel they have to constantly earn their keep in a relationship by being useful. If I am not useful to you, why would you keep me around? That is the internal, often subconscious monologue of the people pleaser.
And this is exactly why they are eventually taken for granted. If your actions are driven by terror and desperation, they cannot command respect.
No, they can't.
You cannot force someone to recognize value in you if you fundamentally do not value yourself.
Precisely. You cannot outgive a lack of self-respect.
Wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
The source material points to setting boundaries and saying no as the ultimate antidote.
Right.
It explicitly states the world rewards people who know when to say no.
It does.
But if everyone starts fiercely protecting their peace and saying no to everything, don't we just become a society of selfish, isolated islands? Where is the line between having healthy architectural boundaries and just being unhelpful or arrogant?
That is a crucial distinction to make, and it's where many people get tripped up. There is a massive difference between a boundary and a barricade.
A barricade?
Right. A barricade is built from a place of defensive fear. It is designed to keep everyone out, to isolate you so you never have to risk getting hurt again. A barricade makes you an island.
Okay, and a boundary.
A boundary, however, is simply a property line. It is clarity. It tells people exactly where the door is, how to knock respectfully, and what behavior is acceptable once they are inside your house.
Right.
Saying no isn't about being unhelpful or arbitrarily shutting down generosity. It is about proving that your time and energy have value.
It goes back to the economy of present.
Exactly. Look at how luxury brands operate. A designer handbag is just leather and stitching, but it costs thousands of dollars because the brand strictly controls the supply.
They create scarcity.
Yes. When your yes is rare and deliberate, it is treated like gold. When your yes is given to everything indiscriminately, it is treated like dirt. Saying no preserves your resources so you can offer an authentic, enthusiastic yes to the things that actually matter.
Here's where it gets really interesting. To visualize this architecture of boundaries, I want you to imagine you are building a house.
Okay.
You pour a massive, solid concrete foundation. You lay down beautiful, wildly expensive hardwood floors. You bring in a plush velvet sofa. You hang gorgeous art on the invisible periphery. But you never dip the walls.
Right.
You leave the floor plan completely open. Suddenly a winter storm rolls in, and the freezing wind howls straight through your living room.
Yeah.
And worse, because there are no walls, you've got a family of neighborhood raccoons sitting on your expensive velvet sofa eating your snacks.
A total disaster.
You were sitting there, shivering, furious at the wind, and deeply offended by the audacity of the raccoons. But you didn't install a front door.
And then you probably apologize to the raccoons when you run out of chips.
Exactly. You're sitting there saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, let me run to the store and get you some more."
Right.
It sounds utterly absurd when we frame it with wildlife. But we do this with emotional vampires in our own lives every single day. We offer a limitless buffet to anyone who wanders by, and then we wonder why our internal house feels utterly trashed.
But you cannot be mad at the raccoons for doing exactly what raccoons do.
No.
And you cannot be angry at the wind. More importantly, you cannot be angry at other people for trampling over your peace if you never constructed the boundaries required to protect it.
Wow.
You teach people how to treat you by what you allow into your space. Every single day, with every text message you answer, every demand you accommodate, you are standing at the chalkboard of your own life, giving a masterclass on how you expect to be treated.
And the source material delivers a very stark warning about the curriculum we teach.
It really does.
It says that every time you sacrifice your own peace, just to avoid disappointing someone else, you actively teach them that your boundaries don't matter. You're the instructor writing on the chalkboard, and the lesson you are drilling into their heads is, my internal equilibrium is entirely expendable as long as you remain comfortable.
Which brings us to the core thesis of respect. Respect is rarely given to the person who says yes to everything.
Right.
Respect is a currency exchanged between people who recognize mutual value in one another. It is earned by the person who knows exactly what they will and will not accept.
Because if you don't respect yourself,
Exactly. When you consistently compromise your own values or your own peace just to avoid rocking the boat, you lose respect for yourself. And humans are incredibly intuitive creatures. People unconsciously pick up on that self-abandonment.
they can feel it.
They sense that you do not back yourself, so they see absolutely no reason to back you either.
But let's talk about the implementation phase. Because theoretically, this all makes sense. We have diagnosed the trap of endless giving. We've traced the root cause back to the nervous system and the fears of rejection, conflict, and loneliness. We've established that boundaries, the architecture of no, are the required structure.
Right.
But actually doing this in real life, the first time you set a firm boundary with someone who is entirely used to your endless fawning, it feels incredibly dangerous.
It does.
You feel like you are being mean. You feel like a bad person.
Because, again, your amygdala is sounding the alarm. Your brain is telling you that by saying no, you are risking exile from the tribe.
Right.
You literally have to train your nervous system to tolerate the discomfort of guilt. When you say no and your brain screams danger, you have to sit in that highly uncomfortable feeling and realize, I am not dying.
Yeah.
The tribe is not leaving me to the wolves. I am just disappointing someone, and that is fundamentally survivable.
It's survivable.
Yes. The source material steps in beautifully here to redefine what strength actually looks like, specifically to comfort the person who is terrified that having boundaries makes them harsh.
Right, because that's the fear.
It points out that the strongest people aren't cold, they aren't cruel, and they aren't selfish. They simply understand that protecting their peace is not an act of arrogance. It is a fundamental act of self-respect.
It is not arrogant to have a front door.
No.
It is a requirement for a healthy life. Protecting your peace is putting up the walls so the fire inside can actually burn bright enough to warm the people you intentionally invite in.
That's beautifully said.
Thank you. But we have to be deeply honest about the aftermath of this transition. The source material does not promise a frictionless happy ending the moment you start saying no.
No, it doesn't.
It outlines a reckoning. It says that when you finally stop chasing everyone's approval, you will notice something strange. Some people will leave.
And there it is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is the deepest fear. The fear of being alone, fully realized.
Yeah.
Some people will leave. We have to face that truth with absolute certainty and without sugarcoating it. Because for some people in your life, their entire relationship with you was predicated solely on your lack of boundaries. They did not love you. They loved your utility.
They love the running water.
They love the running water. When you put a valve on that water, when you politely ask them to respect the plumbing and perhaps contribute to the water bill, they will simply turn around and go find another house with an open tap.
That is a brutally painful pruning process.
It is.
To realize that relationships you invested years, sometimes decades into, were essentially parasitic.
Yeah.
But it is a structurally necessary pain. Because you cannot fill a house with the right people if the raccoons are still taking up all the space in the sofa.
You have to clear the room.
You have to clear the room.
Precisely. And the text pivots directly to the profound reward that waits on the other side of that initial loss.
What's the reward?
While the people who loved your utility will leave, others will respect you more than ever before.
Yeah.
Because when you finally stop hiding behind the mask of endless accommodation, when you stop performing the fawn response just to survive your own social life, you allow people to connect with a genuine, three-dimensional human being.
They finally get to me.
For the first time, they are meeting the real you. They are meeting someone with actual opinions, hard limits, distinct preferences, and a spine. That kind of bold authenticity commands immediate, visceral respect.
We have journeyed through a remarkable psychological landscape today. We started in the exhausting, depleted valley of unconditional availability, realizing that endless giving doesn't buy love, it merely subsidizes disrespect.
Right.
We unpacked the evolutionary biology of why we please people, looking at how the fears of rejection and conflict literally hijack our nervous system and force us into survival mode.
And we explored the structural necessity of the word no, making the vital distinction between a barricade of isolation and a boundary of self-respect.
Exactly.
We saw that boundaries are the walls that prove the space inside has true value. And we learned that teaching people how to treat us is an active daily curriculum.
It's daily work.
It is. True respect from others must always inevitably begin as an inside job. It begins with the self-respect required to withstand the temporary discomfort of saying no. Yeah.
You are allowed to have walls. You are allowed to be highly selective about who gets your energy. Honoring your peace is the foundational bedrock of a sustainable life.
It is the architecture of who you are meant to be. But I want to leave you with one final thought today. Something to carry with you and mull over long after this deep dive ends. The source material makes a beautiful promise. It promises that when you finally stop people-pleasing, the people who stay will respect you more because, for the very first time, they are meeting the real you.
Yeah.
But consider this. If you have spent years, maybe your entire life, playing a character perfectly designed to keep everyone else comfortable, if your whole existence has been a brilliant chameleon act, constantly adjusting your colors to avoid conflict and avoid being alone,
Right.
do you even know who the real you is yet?
That is the question.
Perhaps the boundaries you are about to set aren't just there to keep the wrong people out. Perhaps those walls, that structure, that single word, no. Perhaps they're simply creating the quiet, protected space you desperately need to finally meet yourself.